shoots, he scores! And the song remains the same here in Toronto. I'm fucking crying, bro.
Every hockey fan base has its favourite players, individuals who have earned their place in the history books for their on-ice achievements, leadership and impact on the team, the sport and the hockey community as a whole. Toronto Maple Leafs fans are no different, with the likes of Darryl Sittler, Dave Keon, Matt Sundin and Doug Gilmour, among many others, forever adored as legendary Leafs players. Fans still wear their names on jerseys, they still talk about their greatness, and they have a nostalgia for their playing days. Players like these have left a legacy, a forever impact on the organisation and its fans. So imagine the potential legacy for a homegrown Toronto boy entering the team at the start of a new era. Mitch Marner was selected 4th overall by the Maple Leafs in the 2015 NHL draft. The right winger was born in Markham in 1997, making him a young local with a lot of potential. Marner was a crucial part of the London Knights 2016 playoff run where they became OHL champions. He led the playoffs in scoring and with 44 points in 18 games was awarded the Wayne Gretzky 99 award as playoff MVP. After an impressive training camp and pre-season on the Maple Leafs, it was announced that Mitch Marner would be on the team's roster for the 16-17 season, making his NHL debut on October 12th. This was just one part of a bigger picture of a brand new young Leafs team. For the first time in a while, there was a light at the end of the tunnel for Leafs fans. After just one playoff appearance in the past 10 postseasons, Marner's youth and potential was a symbol for this new chapter of the Leafs, giving fans optimism for a brighter future. The Toronto local, the homegrown talent, the golden boy. He should have had banners in the rafters, his name in the Leafs history books, and his legacy heralded in the same way as the Sittlers, the Gilmours and the Keons. Instead, he's become largely unpopular among the Leafs fan base. He's been involved in a lot of drama within the Leafs organisation, and he was booed off the ice in potentially his last ever game as a Leaf. Where did it all go wrong for Mitch Marner and the Toronto Maple Leafs, and where do they go from here? The Mitch Marner and Toronto Maple Leafs saga just continues to become more and more complex the closer that we get to free agency. It's becoming increasingly likely that Marner's time in Toronto is well and truly done. The rumour mill is in full force and Marner has actually just cancelled his annual charity event in Toronto, making it seem like we have potentially seen the last of Marner in Leafs uniform. It's been really interesting observing how fans have reacted to these developments on social media, and I'm convinced that Mitch Marner is the most divisive player in this current era of the Leafs. Some fans love him, a lot of fans really dislike him. He was supposed to become a local Leafs legend, so how did we get here? How did it all go so wrong? Let's take a mini deep dive into the downfall of Mitch Marner and the Toronto Maple Leafs, and how Marner's time in Toronto seems to be at an end. Perhaps the biggest reason that fan opinion has turned more against Marner with each passing season is his playoff performance. Sam Reinhart of the Florida Panthers scored more goals in the Game 6 of the Stanley Cup final, 4 goals, than Marner has scored in his last 20 playoff games, which is 3. That fact alone really encapsulates the frustration that Leafs fans feel about Marner's playoff performance. Most recently, Marner finished the 2025 playoffs with a plus-minus of -1, and he had 2 goals and 11 assists in the postseason. Of course, he was not the only Leafs player to have a disappointing showing in the postseason this year, but he is the moving piece currently in terms of contract and is placed on the team, so his performance is the relevant one in this context. Marner has been criticised for his playoff ability for a number of years now. His role has always been as a playmaker, and in the regular season, Marner effectively creates scoring opportunities as well as having a significant goal scoring record himself. Somehow, this does not translate to the postseason. Even though the entire core 4 dips in the playoffs, Marner often in some areas seems to drop off even more than the others do. Although there's a lot of issues that we could talk about the core 4 as a group, but in terms of just Marner, It's not great. Although Marner has been a consistent contributor to the Leafs' regular season success, fans have had enough of the playoff disappointment. An article in The Athletic from earlier this month titled "Mitch Marner's Next Contract and the Burden of Expectations" perfectly sums up the main reason for fan disappointment over Marner, detailing that satisfaction often hinges on expectations rather than actual performance. So during a stretch of games, if a fourth liner plays like a third liner and an elite player plays like a first liner, fans will often be more impressed by the fourth liner because they are playing above the expectations set upon them. Because Mitch Marner is a powerhouse of playmaking and goal scoring in the regular season, this is the expectation placed upon him in the postseason. And when he doesn't meet that standard, fans feel, quite rightly so, disappointed by his performance. One of the main factors which influences expectations placed on a player is definitely salary. The higher the pay, the higher the expectations. Nobody expects Pontus Holmberg to have the output that is anticipated of Marner. When Marner was playing on an entry-level contract, he was beloved by fans, and he was a valuable asset to the team too, of course. However, in summer 2019, contract negotiations began, and so did some of the negative narrative about Marner alongside it. He became a polarising figure during this time, with Marner and his agent Darren Ferris souring some fans off the player during contract negotiations with the Leafs. Marner's agent is well known for his strategies when it comes to negotiations. Of course, the majority of this goes on behind closed doors, so without speculating, there's only so much we know. However, from what the public could see, Marner's agent really focused on questioning the Leafs' desire to have his client on the team, from planting seeds about Marner considering playing pro in Switzerland, to reporting that the team didn't value Marner as a player because Dubas wouldn't pay him the same as Matthews. Although these tactics were ultimately successful, with Marner getting paid what he wanted, his agent's strategy altered fan perception of the player for the first time. From seeing Marner as a fresh-faced, homegrown talent, some fans began to lose the previous love and admiration that they had for Marner, and they felt that it put his position as a team player and as a leader into doubt. The 2019 contract negotiations really damaged Marner's brand as a player, and I know that many will say that fan opinion ultimately doesn't matter and that players should get paid whatever they think that they deserve, but what are teams and athletes without fans? Those legendary players that I mentioned at the beginning of this video were not only accomplished on the ice, but they also captivated the hearts of fans off ice too. That's the winning formula for players to become legends, and in my opinion, these 2019 contract negotiations were the catalyst for fans to begin to turn against Mitch Marner. Of course, in the years following, Marner continued to find a lot of success on this Leafs team. His regular season performance was a key part of the team's ability to make the playoffs, and his contribution alongside the other core four cannot be disputed. But money and his contract continued to be an ongoing source of fan distaste when it came to Marner, and it still is to this day. Fast forward to the present year, 2025, and the Leafs had a pretty solid trade deadline this year. They plugged the gaps with the little that they had to give in return, and I would say that overall it was a success. But a bombshell report from Elliot Friedman overshadowed all of the actual trades that the Leafs were involved in. The Hurricanes initially asked for Mitch Marner in return for Rantanen. Because it was for Rantanen, the Maple Leafs had to consider it. They told the winger their desire is to re-sign him, but they had to ask in this case. As is his right, Marner declined to move, reiterating his desire to stay. This really riled up a lot of Leafs fans. Not only did he, as is his right, block the Rantanen trade, which could have been a significant addition to the Leafs roster. Rantanen is a very effective player and someone who I would have loved to have seen in a Leafs jersey. But once again, Mitch Marner was reiterating his desire to stay in Toronto despite not signing and despite the fact that during the season they weren't engaged in contract negotiations. A lot of Leafs fans were frustrated by this development, with many feeling disappointed at losing out on a great player like Rantanen while simultaneously not having Marner signed either. We're now only a few weeks away from free agency on July the 1st, and at this point there is still no Marner deal in sight, and actually it seems like Marner is going to perhaps sign later in July rather than on the 1st, judging by reports. If anything, it seems that relations between Marner and the Leafs have deteriorated further than ever before. We all know that Marner's camp will use the same strategy as before to get Marner the money that he wants. But the question is, are the Leafs willing to pay it just to run it back again? How many times can they do the same thing and expect different results? Aside from Marner's playoff disappointment and the controversy surrounding his contract and salary, I personally think the feelings among fans about Marner is partially due to a bigger picture. Marner was just one piece of this era of the organisation, with the Shana Plan focusing on having a young core group in the hopes it would lead to success. Brendan Shanahan is now of course no longer the Leafs president, and it seems very fitting that his departure has aligned with what looks like the end of Marner's time as a Leaf too. The Shana Plan is effectively dead, as are the hopes, it seems, of homegrown talent Mitch Marner being part of a Stanley Cup win for the team. It feels like a failed era in a way, as even though we've seen incredible success in the regular season and they have made it to the second round a couple of times, even pushing the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers, all the way to a Game 7 this year, but they still haven't won a cup and they still haven't even made it to the conference finals. I think that's why it feels like a failed chapter for many fans, and Marner's contract being up exactly at this point after another colossal Game 7 loss somehow makes him seem like a symbol almost of this failed attempt at going all in for a cup with this strategy of the core four. I know that Marner cannot be solely blamed for these failures. There are others, many others, who also shoulder the blame. But as he is the piece of the puzzle which may not be back next season, he definitely seems to embody the entire idea of the Shana Plan, this new era of young players going for cup success. Only now the plan has failed, the young core is now getting older, Shanahan is gone, and it looks like Marner is too. It feels like the team now has to recalibrate and come up with a whole new strategy into the next era because the Shana Plan is officially dead.
We've been saying it this whole time. I mean, we don't care what you guys say. We don't listen to you guys outside of this locker room. We're just focused on ourselves.
It's no secret that the Toronto media is an intense landscape. The city is one of the beating hearts of the sport, with the Hockey Hall of Fame right there downtown. It's a passionate hockey city with some of the most knowledgeable and dedicated fans in the world, and it's one of my favourite places for that exact reason. The media have had plenty of criticisms about this team over the years, and Marner is included in these complaints. Marner, in my opinion, doesn't seem to handle the media particularly well. He's publicly dismissed media opinions before, stating, "We don't care what you guys say," which many found to be disrespectful. He's been accused of not handling criticism well in comparison to his teammates, and a lot of his interviews lead to him making comments or remarks that fans don't appreciate or like. Perhaps playing for a different team in a different city is just the change of scenery that Marner needs. And moving on from Marner is something the Leafs definitely need.
Marner pleading with his bench to wake up.
I was at Game 7 in Scotiabank Arena. I was surrounded by the boos and the Let's Go Blue Jays chants. I saw the drinks thrown, the jerseys tossed over the plexis, and the fans filing out of the building, which before puck drop had been charged with energy and passion. I also witnessed what I truly believe was the last game for the Leafs in this era. Although one player doesn't make a team, when two of your core group are both free agents, and when you've tried and failed with the same formula for the best part of a decade, it's definitely time to usher in a new era. Wake the up, Marner shouted at his teammates during that game. But it was too late. The damage was done. The Leafs once again failed to get anywhere near to Lord Stanley. Marner spoke in the past tense about his time with the Leafs after the game, one of the first hints that his time may be done in the six. In my opinion, it's definitely time for Marner and the Leafs to go their separate ways. It will be hard for the Leafs to plug that gap with Marner missing, and it's frustrating that a no-move clause prevented them from getting something in return for what is ultimately a great hockey player, but nonetheless, it's time to move on. Marner may well go on to win a cup somewhere else. He proved in the Four Nations face-off that he can be a clutch player when it matters, something that he doesn't exhibit in a Leafs jersey. The fairy tale story of the homegrown Toronto boy who gets to play for his childhood team and lift the Stanley Cup with them. Eventually his name is on a banner hanging from the rafters, and my generation of Leafs fans 50 years from now talk about the good old days of the Core 4 era. Fairy tales don't always come true in the hockey world, that's for sure. Instead of a happily ever after, it ends with overpriced beer thrown on the ice alongside the jerseys tossed over the plexi, with fans booing and filing out of the building en masse after the Toronto Maple Leafs once again proved that they can't be clutch in a Game 7. If this is the end of Mitch Marner and the Toronto Maple Leafs, it has a pretty ugly end. So there you have it. There's my little deep dive into the downfall of Mitch Marner and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Leave me a comment down below. What are your thoughts on Mitch Marner? He's definitely a divisive individual and fan opinion is definitely mixed on him. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and also like this video too. I hope you enjoyed this mini deep dive and I'll be back soon with another video about hockey commentary or the Toronto Maple Leafs.